My name is Liesel van der Westhuizen, and it is my absolute privilege to welcome you to the Kaelo April webinar on filling your mental health cup. I think you will all agree with me that in today's fast-paced world, it is so easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, often neglecting our mental well-being in the process. However, I think it is crucial that we prioritize our mental well-being the same way that we prioritize our physical well-being. Now, throughout this webinar, we will delve into strategies and techniques that will help us to replenish our mental health cup. Unfortunately, Samantha Muniela, who was scheduled to facilitate the session today, is unable to do so due to unforeseen events. However, it is my greatest pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker for today, Andiswe Lefekane. Andiswa is a qualified social worker and coach with wealth of experience and expertise in the field of mental health. Her dedication to promoting mental well-being shines through every interaction and inspires others to prioritize their own mental health and to live their best lives. So please join me in extending a warm welcome to Andiswa. Andiswa, thank you so much for the privilege of your time this afternoon. And I think without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to you. Andiswa, can you hear us? Apologies, let's just give a minute or so. Andiswa, can you hear us? Andiswa? Andiswa, can you hear us? Apologies, there seemed to be a technical issue on our side, even though we did the testing before, but Murphy's Law. If you can allow us just 1 minute to quickly get the technical issues out of the way, and then we can continue.
Right. Let's see now. Can you hear me?
There we go. I think we can hear you now clearly. Apologies for the wait, guys. We can hear you clearly, Andiswa. Again, thank you so much for the privilege of your time this afternoon. Apologies for the technical issues, but I think we're very excited for this journey that you're about to take us on. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to you. Andiswa, just make sure that you're unmuted. Technology is not on our side today. Andiswa, we're struggling to hear you. I think it's fine now. Andiswa, can you hear us? Just make sure that you're unmuted. Andiswa? It really seems like technology is not in our favor this afternoon. Andiswa, are you winning on your side? Are you unmuted? Can you hear us? Oh, and there we lost her completely. I see in the chat box there's some individuals who's also struggling with some connection issues. Guys, I do apologize sincerely, but I trust that we will be up and running shortly. Let's see. Andiswa, can you hear us?
Yes.
There we go.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Andiswa, just make sure that you're unmuted, please. That you unmute yourself. We can't hear. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh,
Perfect.
Shit.
Don't touch any more buttons.
Apologies.
No
Apologies
worries.
about this. Let me not stay longer on with the camera. Let me get on with the presentation whilst the technology seems to be kind to me. But a very good afternoon to you all, and let's just get on with it. I'll switch off the camera, and you will please advise me if my presentation is on. Is my presentation on?
Not as yet.
Okay. Let's just share it again.
Something's coming through. Let's just give it a second. There we go. Thank you so much. We can
There
see.
we go. And you can hear me quite clear.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Andiswa.
All right. So the topic of today is on filling your mental health cup. So isn't it amazing that whilst I'm on the topic and presenting on it, my own mental health now wants to be challenged by the technology. But what are we talking about when we are actually talking about mental health? We're going to just define it. We're going to look at the mental triggers. We will look at the wellness wheel and then understand the 3 R's that can support us to fill our mental health cup. We'll then look at our psychological first aid kit, which I'll also explain what it is, and then look at the benefits of having a cup, a mental health cup that is filled. And then I'm going to continue now to how we define it. The definition I would like to use is a definition used by the World Health Organization. And they say that mental health, according to them, is a state of well-being that basically enables people to cope with the stresses of life, to realize their abilities, to learn and work well and contribute to their community. I hope you've actually ticked those few elements of what I'm talking about. It's basically an integral component of our health and our well-being that underpins all of the individual's collective abilities to make decisions, to build relationships, and to live in the world at large. So, and basically what happens with mental health is it can get affected sometimes, through things like, psychological or emotional and your social well-being. It can impact on the way you think, on the way you feel, and the way you act, and in the way that you relate with others as well. So as we go through adulthood, we go through almost like a continuum of mental health. Sometimes we are well, sometimes we aren't well. And also you might find that things like mental disorders, they form part of our mental health. It could be factors such as biological factors, where your genes, through maybe whatever brain chemistry or whatever else that you picked up from your other members of the family through your life experiences, things like trauma that might have occurred in your family, maybe even through family history. So mental health is more than just an absence of a mental disorder. It does exist through that continuum that I've spoken about. Now let's look at the triggers, of course. What are some of the triggers of mental health? Some can be external triggers and others could be internal triggers. So there's a wide range of causes. And I think with the definition, you can be able to also to start to relate with that, to say, if I look at some of the things that are externally, like when you are in the work environment, there are some external triggers, like with maybe something within your environment that might end up affecting your mental health. The internal ones are more or less like your biological ones, internal ones, as I've already related. So let's look at maybe things like your lifestyle factors, things like your diet, some people might be taking substance, lack of sleep. All those can affect your mental health. Remember, just like we have physical health, we also have mental health. And I do want to encourage ourselves as well, when we think about the triggers, that we shouldn't be afraid to talk about our mental health. It's just the same way as we're able to say, oh, I have a headache. You don't hide the physical health. You could say, I have a headache, and talk to somebody, because of the fact that we actually sometimes want to look at mental health differently out of lack of understanding it. We end up actually making the problem even worse. So some of the experiences that may affect your mental health are things like maybe childhood abuse, traumas, neglect, social isolation. I think COVID was one of those where, out of isolation, we felt that our mental health was affected, and there were triggers as well. And then also when you experience discrimination or when there's stigmatization, things like bereavement, they also affect us quite badly. So severe long-term illnesses sometimes, unemployment, domestic violence, physical causes like and so on. So those are some of the things that can actually be triggers in terms of mental health. I would like then now to share this slide. This slide basically refers to a model as we continue talking about the triggers that was discovered, I think, way back by an American psychiatrist called George L. Engel in 1977. And basically, this model is referred to as a biopsychosocial model. And he said that if we are wanting to understand the cause of problems, it can also be important that we actually evaluate it considering these three factors: the biological side of somebody, the psychological side of somebody, and the social environment. So when we start to understand these various factors and how they impact and actually cause us to be vulnerable to mental health issues, then we can actually be able to understand people better. If I were to make an example, you think about somebody who maybe has actually maybe lost somebody, experienced bereavement, and out of that, then maybe that person was a breadwinner in their home, and therefore everybody else because of the passing of that person, the whole family becomes disorganized in the manner in which they could carry out and live their lives. This then just ends up affecting everybody, and their mental health also can be affected by that. But just looking at other examples as well, at a biological level, you might find that somebody else within the family might have suffered depression before or had a mental illness, which then might also increase levels of maybe that also occurring and showing up in somebody else's life. Also looking at things like, psychological issues, where how we deal with problems and how we interact with others and how we think about ourselves might impact on our mental health. And then the social side could be an example of like how we were nurtured and conditioned within our own homes would also then affect how we also interact with others, because it has an impact on us. So all of the above have a role in our emotional and mental wellnesses. So we need to just be mindful of that as we continue. Now, we're also going to look at the wellness wheel. So the wellness wheel is a tool, and it's a visual guide for us. It helps us to assess all aspects of our wellness. So it basically covers about 7 dimensions. Other people make reference to about 8 dimensions that it actually covers when you want to understand the wellness wheel. So if you want to do almost like it's your balance scorecard when it comes to your wellness. So if, for example, you understand the interconnectedness of all these other dimensions and the importance of it, you can then be able to live a well-rounded and a balanced lifestyle. So I'm just going to take a few seconds to just be quiet so that we can reflect on this as we pay attention to them. Ask yourself a question when you look at this wheel. Where are you? Which are the aspects that are not necessarily well looked after? Which are the ones that might be quite neglected by you? And therefore, that might also have an impact on how happy and how well balanced a life are you living because of them. Because every part of it is interconnected, and it causes us to then live as holistic beings, even though we have multiple areas of our lives that we need to contribute towards and experience as human beings. So think about it. So if I can delve a little bit deeper, maybe let's start on what you're a intellectual being, even that you are even though that you are an employee, but it's also important that you keep stimulating yourself and encouraging. So you might have your degree and 1 or 2 others, but if maybe the last time you were at school is like so many years ago, and you are still continuing as an employee without necessarily continuously developing yourself. We talk about continuous professional development, meeting with other professionals, sharing the benchmarks and the standards of practice practice and so on and so forth, you might find that you're no longer as stimulated in doing your job. And you might find that, even your levels of interest, they start to dwindle. And again, you could inspire yourself even by reading, and staying engaged and being curious about the latest trends and things like that. Let's look at our physical being. The physical being relates to how we move our body, our levels of exercise, how we engage, what we are eating. There's a book that I love. It says the optimum nutrition for your brain. So the brain also needs for us to have the right food, to feed it with the right food, in order that we can be able to show up in our workplace in an energized manner. And again, we need to take care of ourselves. We need to be able to ensure that we get proper sleep, we get our 8-hour sleep so that our bodies can be able to recuperate, and then we can wake up again fine. And this is where we can also help to reduce and minimize chances of illnesses within our own bodies. And I'm just touching on others very quickly. Emotional awareness as well is another way of maintaining, emotional life by managing your stress levels, understanding your triggers, knowing what can lead to those triggers, and knowing how to manage those triggers. We talk about the fact that in life, you can't run away from conflict, and conflict is something like when two ideas oppose. So because we are not the same, and we don't come from the same environment, we can never really see the same way. Look at yourself within your own family. You don't always want to watch the same program. There's even sometimes a fight over a remote control. Why? Because of the very problem that conflict will always be there, because we are diverse people. So conflict is not about things that we run away from. It's about managing it. And I'm just touching on that as just to understand things like your emotional wellness. So some of the stress levels that we find ourselves in is things that we could just learn how to better manage, and then we can be able to move on. Things like also being self-aware, and also being able to understand how and when to calibrate yourself and so on. Our environment, that's another thing. Like today, it's a rainy weather, it's a gloomy weather, unless you are somewhere else really. But this weather, again, you can't control the weather. If you somebody who says, I don't like rainy days, I hate them, it's going to affect your mood, because you are the only thinker in your mind. So if you start to build those thoughts and continuously just ruminate on them, they will affect how you show up. Social wellness, again, this is the aspect of you that is basically about your social support network. It is said that we are gregarious creatures who cannot continue without connecting to other people. So if you are not mindful of how you show up with other people, and also how you incorporate that connectivity with other people as you live your lives and build and maintain positive relationships, then your mental health can also be affected. Now, the question we need to ask ourselves is, having had all this, are we really just thriving, or are we just surviving? And what does it mean? If you look at these two diagrams in front of us, the multitudes of challenges that we currently face and have been facing over time is because of the different various dimensions of wellness that we're not well looking after. But then again, if we're not well looking after them, then our wellness will, because of our wellness, will we end up just surviving, meaning you're just going by, you're just showing up in life in whatever way, but not in an inspired way, not in a purposeful way, and so on. So if you look at the surviving part, the colored parts basically represent the elements where the person is not necessarily just completely imbalanced, meaning they're not in tune. In other areas, they're quite low in their wellness will. So it will make their lives not to be a smooth ride. But if you look at the thriving, the thriving will, this is where, even though things are not completely done, but they are almost full, meaning that this person is intentional about ensuring that there's a nice balance between every element of their will, which is when then you start to enjoy your life and you thrive. But as I've said that, we're now going to find some tools, meaning that what are some of the things that we can do to improve our overall mental well-being. So we need to pay attention to these 3 R's. We need to recognize, we need to rewind, and we need to also see how we can be able to develop resilience. What do we recognize? We need to recognize where things are in our wellness wheel. What are the things that are out of balance, and what is it that we can be able to do to fill our mental health cup? And also looking at the different areas and how maybe we have contributed to being there, and learning to be open to yourself and not to judge yourself, being kind enough to say, you know what, if I am not looking after myself in this area, it is eventually going to have a negative effect on me. Remember, it's not necessarily about time, but it is about the energy that you put in as you start to actually improve on your wellness side. So you need to recognize things like your levels of stress. What is it that you can change there? I've spoken about it, that about stress, that our lives are about fight or flight. We can't really avoid stress, but we can learn how to manage stress. Also look at, how do you get ready? How do you feed your body? What kind of food do you eat? Do you hydrate yourself? They say we need to drink a minimum of 8 glasses a day. How are you doing with that? Some of the suggestions that you can have or make when it comes to water. Try, for example, to drink water. Squeeze a lemon, slice of lemon. Have a slice of lemon in your water, just to make it interesting. Slice of cucumber or anything else, some strawberries, just so that you can be able to hydrate yourself and drink water. But reduce on things like caffeine, things like alcohol, and things like nicotine, because those then have also got a negative impact on them. Keep physical, be active in the manner that you enjoy. What is it that you enjoy in terms of being physical? I'm not talking about going to the gym, because some people might say, oh, but then gyms, these days it's a scam, you have to pay so much and so on. But what about walking? What about skipping? What about swimming? When you walk, you've got friends around who can walk with you, and you can talk about so many things whilst you're walking. You can catch up, so the social aspect is also taken care of whilst you're also taking care of the physical aspect. So you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone while you're walking. So think about other things. Other people hike these days and so on, but find ways that you can move your body. Join a dance club, you will meet new friends. So then the other part of your life is being taken care of as well. And make time to rest as well. Sometimes because of these huge deadlines and so on, you find that it becomes impossible to rest. People just keep on working all the time, even during weekends. But then how do you fill up your glass if you're working all the time? When do you switch off? What does switch off mean to you? Some people say, I'm switching off, they go to bed, but then they still have their phone next to them. They find it difficult to disconnect because they suffer from FOMO, which is fear of missing out. And I must highlight to you that alone can actually be an addiction, a form of addiction. If you're fearful of missing out, it means you can actually go and find support on how you can live without just being afraid of that. Also looking at your improving your coping strategies. What is it that you can tapping on your network, people that you trust, people that you can open up to, people that can give you wisdom and other ways of understanding things. I'm talking about your spirituality as well. One of the things that we always ignore and forget is to understand that we are just spirit that dwell in bodies. So the bigger part of ourselves is that spirit essence. And how do we take care of that? How do we nurture that? How do we manage our time effectively, and so on? So those are the things you need to be aware of as you are developing and improving your coping strategies. How do you take action? There's no time like the present time, where there's a book I love by Eckhart Tolle. It's titled The Power of Now. So the power of now reminds us that all that we have is now. The past is gone, the future is yet to come, but what we have right now within our control is now. And how are we actually using our now? So if you want to maybe summarize it and maybe map it out, you can actually identify your happiness through these 4 elements as well, and just look at where things are. Because then when all these elements are at a balance, then you'll find yourself happy. Remember, happiness is a positive and a pleasant emotion. It ranges from contentment to intense joy, and there are moments of happiness really that can be triggered by just the way you live your life. And basically this then might help you as well to actually fill up your glass. So recognize the different areas where those symptoms might start to show up, and they are basically just reminding you that here you are not paying attention, you are not putting much work onto them. So we said we're looking at the 3 R's. The other one is rewind. So this is the aspect where we can learn to undo things, find areas that we've identified that we need to bring about change. And actually, this speaks about how you self-care, how you fill up your glass. So consider that. Don't be too hard on yourself. You can improve your self-care just by doing the following. Number 1, just asking for help. If you feel like, no, I can't cope anymore, don't be afraid to be vulnerable and ask for help. Spending time alone. Sometimes we need that time where we can do our own internal introspections, where we can just do our own journaling. They talk about gratitude journaling. This is where you begin to recognize every little thing that is working in your life and saying thank you for it. Because sometimes you find that you get so stressed up about, small things that are not working, and yet there's so much that is working. But the gratitude journal helps us to do that. When you put yourself first, we're not talking about selfishness here, but we're talking about you filling up your glass first so that you can be able to pour onto other people's glasses, asking for what you need. Learning to ask for what is it that I need in order that I can improve. Maybe there's areas there. And sometimes when you go for professional help, they help you to be able to actually, be able to map out that as well. Setting boundaries. Simple example of it is your yeses becoming your yeses and your no's becoming your no's, because sometimes you find that that's what gets us into a conundrum, or like into problems, because we would have said yes because we know that we want to spend time on our own, we want to be with family, we just want to recharge, and then all of a sudden we change from saying yes, we've gone back and we're taking those responsibilities. It is actually to your detriment that you do that. So learn that your yeses must be yes and your no's must be no. Staying at home, sometimes it does help to just be at home. You don't have to be at the mall, because sometimes you drive up, you go to the mall, you're picking up one thing, next thing the whole trolley is full. Is it within your budget? No, but you already now have found yourself there. But had you just stayed at home, you would find that you would not have been involved in that. You would have had more time to spend with your kids. You'd have been more time to spend with your family, your partners, and so on. So I've touched on saying no, but also learning to forgive yourself. If you can look at the word forgive, and you just cut it in the middle, forgive. It is meant that you need to give first to you. Give yourself the benefit of the doubt. So when you look at a problem that occurred and a situation that occurred and it affected the relationship, look at how you can first forgive yourself. What is it that you can give the benefit of the doubt that, what, I did what I could according to what I knew at the time. That's part of forgiving. And then also learning to take a step back. They say you need to take a step back before you can make it come back. So that's also another way of looking at life and say, if I were just to take 2 steps backwards and look at this thing as if it is not me, I am the one who's the looker and the onlooker. What is it that I can be able to identify? And that's basically part of self-care. Now you need to remember to take care of yourself, because sometimes you get so busy wanting to help the whole world and forgetting that you too are important. So we look at the third one, which is resilience. What is resilience? Resilience is basically that capacity or a process of adapting well, or meaning bouncing well in the face of adversity or trauma or tragedy or threats or even significant sources of stress. Where our resilience has been tested with us, it's during COVID. If you look at us right now, we are living a post-COVID life. We have bounced back, but but we've bounced back, not the same, but we have adapted again to the way the life has actually taken shape. So we've allowed change to affect us and impact us, and we've come out slightly different, but we are still here and we are living. So that is basically resilience. If I may maybe use an example of a tennis ball, sometimes you bounce it, you can drop it and it will bounce back to you. Sometimes, depending on how hard you drop it, it might bounce up a little bit higher. And that is what resilience is. And this shows through how you've dealt with family and relationships problems, how you've dealt with the serious health problem, how you've dealt with the health scare, how you've dealt with workplace stresses, and how you dealt with financial stresses. Again, we need to remember that resilience it also refers to to the fact that it's not everybody who just has it like that. It's just a process, and as human beings, we might respond differently at different times to our own situations. So it is the human capacity to be able to face, to overcome, and be strengthened by, or even transformed by, the adversities of life. Look at us and how different we might look from the COVID. Remember how there was things like how at the initial set of COVID, we found ourselves being locked up a hard 52 days, just staying all by ourselves. As much as we initially enjoyed the first few days because we felt like, oh, we're taking a break from work, but it got to a place where we didn't like it anymore. It was hard. We missed our colleagues, we missed our friends, we missed our families. Then the scare as well, in terms of your health scare, the death scare, and so on, and the losing of the people, the manner in which we buried people, all those things affected us. But right now, we are showing up in a completely different way, and we've learned so much out of those challenging circumstances. So how do I know if I lack resilience? That might be the question that you're asking yourself right now. Remember, resilience is a state of being, and it can fluctuate depending on how you are responding to that particular life situations. So sometimes how you respond to it, you might look at it, it might actually start to show in the manner in which you are, even your body is responding. Sometimes when there's persistent illness, it might be a sign that you are lacking resistance in that area. Sometimes when you are just constantly irritable and little things anger you, you're quick to anger, a touch is a move for you, you're like a fuse, and then the mood swings that are there, this thing of wanting to isolate yourself, poor memory, sleep disturbances, and so on. These are some of the things that might just be indicative that you are actually lacking some resilience, meaning that you need to pay attention, and it is actually important that you and then find yourself a professional to help you sometimes when it's difficult to get yourself out of that loop. Resilience, therefore, might also look like this. It might be referring to the fact that you have the power to keep going on despite these difficulties. And then also, these are some of the ways that you might look at the outlook that you might have. Optimism is one of them. Self-belief is one of them. Control of self, learning to be and being willing to adapt to situations, the changing circumstances. We talk about the VUCA world, the world that is basically so volatile, that's basically, there and changing all the time. But your willingness to adapt to that, your willingness to be flexible, not wanting to be everything to be your way or the highway, ability to solve problems, emotional awareness, your social support, and just maintaining a sense of humor. Sometimes even watching humorous movies and so on can help, or reading things that just will keep you laughing at things, or even learning to laugh at yourself. That helps with developing resilience. So these are some of the building steps towards resilience, where you start to say to yourself, resilience, of course, is about my thoughts, it's about my behaviors, and these are things that I can learn and relearn and develop. Body actually has the innate capability to be resilient. and then so these are some of the strategies maybe and building blocks that you could adopt, where you foster your wellness, which means that you maybe by taking care of your body, remembering that stress can affect you both emotionally, physically, and so on, and learning how to reduce those levels of stress, and learning how to get into things like other spiritual practices, like getting into a quiet time, praying, worshiping, meditation, and also reducing those negative outlets, where you rely on things to support yourself, like saying a glass of wine will help for me, and then it becomes 2 glasses, 3 glasses, and so on. So being mindful of that. And then how do you build your connections as well? By prioritizing relationships sometimes, where that this is now my debriefing time, where if it's been a heavy week, I'm just going to go to so and so for a cup of coffee, for a jog, for whatever, just so that I can be able to groove, to be able to jog. Sorry, I said to groove. You can also groove. There's nothing wrong with that. Embrace healthy thinking as well. Remember, we're the only thinkers in our minds. I think there's a book by the title the Power of the Subconscious Mind, and the author there speaks about how we're the only ones who think in our minds. So we are the ones who need to do the cleanup of our thoughts and fill our thoughts with positive thoughts, so that we can be able to do things differently. And then finding purpose and meaning for our lives. Each one of us are created for a specific purpose. We are uniquely designed. We are gifted so uniquely and differently that if we can just find our own purposes, just like the flowers, there's no one flower that is the same. There's no one tree that is the same. So we also is that intricately and beautifully and wonderfully designed. But when we find our purposes, then we begin to understand the meaning of life. We start to understand which part do we fit. If we were like looking at ourselves as a body, which part are we in the body? Am I the hand? Am I the eye? Am I the leg? And so on. And then you seek support, because when you can then be able to reach out and seek for professional help, you don't have to feel stuck. And it is also your way of building even greater resilience for yourself. So as we also then conclude, I also just want to touch on psychological first aid, because I said sometimes you can't give yourself that psychological first aid. Remember, with psychological first aid, all that you are doing is you are just addressing the basic needs in order that you can be able to reduce the psychological distresses of your life. So you provide yourself this comforting and caring way, of yourself, and you learn other ways as well. So you can tend to your friends, you can support yourself, you don't need to isolate yourself, you initiate and get into training programs, you join some sport, you reduce alcohol consumption, you pamper yourself. Some people think about pampering as, going to some expensive spas and so on. Some of these things you can even buy yourself. Remember, even during COVID, we couldn't go to spas. But if people started to buy spa collections, like things that you can massage your own self and get your feet into a spa bath or whatever it is, but things that you can also do by yourself that don't need to be expensive. Sometimes, yes, if you are happy, you can go and do the lavish and the splash of pampering yourself. And how do you pamper yourself? Avoid overeating, because remember, that also has some negative effects on your body. So if you're not eating the right food and you're overeating, you're also going to then create illnesses over time. And then also avoiding financial overload. Are you living within your means, buying what you need to buy at the time, and also ensuring that you're reducing your debt? As I conclude, I'd like to say that having a filled mental health cup allows you to, number one, enjoy emotional well-being. It enables you to regulate your emotions, your experiences, and it enables you to maintain a balanced perspective even during difficult time. It also allows you to improve your relationships, where you can better engage and have healthy relationships. And you can learn to communicate even effectively and better, and learn how to set boundaries and learn how to create stronger connections. Also can help you to improve your productivity and performance. Remember, if your body is healthy, it will serve you better. If you eat healthy, your body will also help you to produce, to be productive in the workplace. You can be able to reach your personal goals as well. You find that sometimes what's actually causing you not to be able to move ahead is because you're just not eating well. You're just not well. And then also improved overall health. Remember we spoke about the interconnectedness. So the impact that it can then have, a positive impact on your health, which then has a positive impact on the overall quality of your health. Then also it helps you to create opportunities for lifelong learning. So we learn all the way. We have to learn with every experience that we go through, because then we are building our resilience, we are cultivating our skills for navigating this life's complexities, and then also we then actually grow to become better people as well, and we then grow other people to become better people, because we then develop wisdom and then also discretion on how to apply ourselves in that way. So in summary, building a mental health cup is important because it enhances our resilience. And it also enhances our emotional well-being. It improves our relationships and all that. So it actually just helps us to foster lifelong learning growth, as I've already said. So thank you so much. We have come to the end of our presentation, and I can take questions or comments, or even some people who want to share, how they believe that their cup has been filled by just the way, the new habits and behaviors that they've adopted in order to grow in their lives. Thank you.
Andiswa, thank you so much for this valuable information. As I'm sitting here and listening to you speak, I actually reflected on my own life. And I think a lot of people on this call will resonate with me when I say it's, when you sit in a session like this, you get motivated and you can think about, as you reflect about the elements and areas in your life where you need to focus on, whether it's physical, whether it's other, physical health, whether it's spending more time with family, whether it's financial. I think every single person on this call, we each have our own basket, and our baskets, it looks different, right? And it's, as we're sitting here, we feel motivated to apply those changes, make those changes so that we can live a better life, right? But then tomorrow morning we wake up again. And as I mentioned earlier, it is so easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everyday life. We do live in a high-paced world. And I think if I can personally share, for me, it's about reaching out for help. I've noticed I can't always do it on my own. And when you reach out for help, the treatment professionals are qualified, registered treatment professionals that can help you to maximize your life in various areas. And I was one of those people who always built my walls, and I would deal, with my own things in my own way. But it's to a point in your life, and I'm speaking from my own experience, where you almost feel like, okay, now I don't know which way to turn to. Do I go right? Do I go left? I need someone to help me. And unfortunately, and I think mental health has become some of a buzzword in recent times, but I do believe that there's still a little bit of a public stigma linked to mental health and counseling. And hence the reason people are so skeptic or cautious reaching out to a counselor because of the stigma that's linked to it. But I almost want to leave you with this today, and I want to position counseling as a self-development tool. And my own experience, taking my own experience, I almost want to compare it to learning how to drive for the very first time. And in this way, you can jump in here. But how I find it in my personal environment, in my personal space, is, when you reach out to a counselor, when you reach out to a treatment professional, whether it's a counselor, whether it's a psychologist, whether it's a life coach, these treatment professionals are equipped and qualified to give you, I almost want to say, homework, things that you need to apply in your daily life. And the more you apply those things, before you know it, it becomes second nature. And I almost want to compare to learning how to drive for the very first time. I don't know about you, but I remember when I got into that car for the very first time, I was so overwhelmed. Anxiety through the roof. I can feel my palms sweating. And even the second time when I got into that car to learn how to drive, I got anxious. I could feel the physical impact, the emotional impact. But got into that car, and the more I practiced driving, before I know it, it became second nature. I mean, today I get into a car without even thinking about it, seatbelts on my way to my destination. And it's because I've practiced it so many times. And that's exactly the same with counseling, reaching out to a qualified treatment professional. The tools and the homework and the things that they equip you with to practice on a daily basis. Mental health is not something that you only implement when you feel you need it. It's something that we need to focus on and implement certain things in the way that we live our daily lives. It has to be sustainable. We have to apply it every single day. And the more you do it, it becomes second nature. So I want to encourage you on the call today for all of you that has joined, and for those who will listen to the recording, is take time for yourself and reflect what's in your basket. What do you need in your own cup to maximize your life, to live a life of fulfillment, joy? And, the amazing thing about the human experience is that only you can be honest and true to yourself. So when you look in that mirror and you honestly ask yourself the question, what do I need to fulfill my mental cup? Only you can be honest and true to yourself. So I do want to encourage you, if you do need to speak to someone, if you do need to reach out for help, whether it's with a counselor, whether it's with a coach to maximize certain areas of your life, please do so. For the individuals who have access to the Kaelo EAP program called Ask Nelson, please remember that the services with all the benefits embedded into Ask Nelson is also extended to your loved ones. So please make sure that when you go home tonight that everyone knows, how do I get a hold of Ask Nelson, so that so that you can enhance your life in various areas of it. Andisa, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, most definitely. I mean, you have said everything so well, and I'm also reminded that, in fact, I was doing a presentation, similar one to one organization, and this one of the audiences, the members in of the audience thought they were catching me up, and they said, okay, you're talking about this counseling or reaching out for professional help. Have you ever used it? And I said to them, yes, 2 years ago, I lost my dad, and initially I thought, okay, I've got all the tools and the skills. I'm going to be able to do it by myself. And guess what? I realized that I'm not coping, and I reached out for professional help. I came and I sat on the other side of the desk, and I enjoyed my time, with being with the counselor. Yes, with myself, it wasn't somebody that I knew. I'd asked for somebody to refer me. I was apprehensive at the onset as to what is it that I can expect. But at the end, I really pat myself at the back for what I achieved, having gone there. So I do really want to recommend that sometimes just reach out for help. And you can find people there who will give you some tools. You're quite right. And then you also spoke about, looking at the man in the mirror. And you reminded me of Michael Jackson's song, I'm looking at the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, And they say, if you want to make yourself this world a better place, take a look at yourself first, and make that change. So it's all about that. We are the ones who need to first make the change. Thank you. Hi, Liesl.
And now it's me again on mute. Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you. Just go again, please.
Let's try that again.
Yes.
Just a heartfelt thank you for joining us for this webinar this afternoon. We're excited for our next one, and I hope that we'll see you soon for the next Kaelo live webinar. I think from my side, just remember, Take care of yourself. It's not selfish at all. There's a saying, and I know we all know it, you can't pour from an empty cup, but it is so true. So I want to encourage you, take time for yourself, reflect on what you need in your cup to live a healthy life. And if you do need support, please don't hesitate to reach out. So take care until we meet again.
Thank you.